Hi, Nick Collier here, and this is my shop. Come join me. We'll have some fun.
Okay, we begin this part of the project by putting in socket head bolt in there and trimming it down to make a dog point out of it. You can see I'm just trimming it down just slightly, and then I'm going to go in and wedge cut the bolt all the way back to where it almost breaks off, and then just break it off, and that'll slide right into that little setup that we did to allow that the adjuster to go back and forth without it binding. Okay, let's set this thing back up. We've got our bolt going in. That's our pivot bolt, and at some point or another I'll want to make that a little shorter. And I'm off talking on the telephone or something. Now, if I just centered the camera, we would have gotten a better shot here, but I am putting the adjuster bolt in and snugging everything down. And those are the little rotating blocks. And I just took the file and scored that bolt so that I can cut it off. There we are, back to normal. We're adjusting it in and out. Looks like it's running fairly smoothly. And then that adjuster bolt that I just cut off, I tighten that down pretty tight, and that allows the router to be firm in place. Now we take it back apart and clean up some edges and deburr some stuff. There we go. And I put the router on. Of course, obviously I didn't film that, but it basically was just a matter of 4 bolts, 4 small bolts. Well, and now I'm trying to put it in place, but the router's heavy. There we go. No, not quite yet. If I remember correctly, it was a bit of a fight. But we finally get it. Bring the adjuster plate up. Put our adjusting blocks in place. Snug everything down. And time to put the router bit in. And let's see what our fences are going to look like. Well, obviously, right off the gate, I'm seeing that there's a hole that needs to be cut in order to adapt to that bolt. Right. So let's put the other side on, just see what it looks like. Very good. And that's what the profile looks like once the board goes through. we're just going to put a little paint on that bolt head right in the middle and bring our fence up, drop it on top of the bolt head, and there's our paint. And I think I tried to do a countersink, and for some reason it didn't work. I can't remember why. Although it looks like it should. And you can see this video was taken in late spring, and there was a cooling trend in, I think, early June, which is when this video was taken, and I'm wearing a jacket. Now it's a month later, and jackets are unheard of at this point. We're in the 80s to 100s. Of course, not up here where I live. It's more like 70s to 80s because I'm up at 3,000 feet and under the trees, and it's always cooler here. And we're going to come in with a 1-inch bit and open that hole up a bit. And since it's kind of an approximation, we really don't have to use the mill or using my old Craftsman drill press. Little countersink. Countersink the backside. Shimmy that table up. Okay, there we go. Now we're gonna prep to weld. So the two solid fences, and I put a spacer in between so that the two solid fences, the ones that are going to be welded to the table, align with the adjustable fence. I'll take it back off, do a little weld prep. Tighten everybody up. It all looks good. Do the same thing for this side. Grinding until we can grind no more. And we're prepping to put the adjusters in place. Just kind of cleaning off that fire scale off of the plate and the fence. Now putting our other fence back on, getting everybody situated and happy. And I think we're ready to start welding. Now, okay, a little bit more prep. Now, this thing is starting to get really heavy, and rather than carry it over to the welding bench, I decided to bring the welder over to this table. And a little last minute cleanup and some spot welding. Well, maybe it's not spot welding. Maybe I permanently welded it in place. Okay, and we're welding in the adjusters, clamping the shit out of them, and then getting them in position and welding them away. Got the one done. Let's come over to the other side and do this second one. Take some measurements. Oops, let's change our C-clamp so that it fits better. Yeah, that's good. Taking more measurements. And then we need to clamp that one down. And it looks like everything is straight and level. So let's throw some weld beads on that. Okay, the more things get welded in, the less C-clamps I need. So now we're marking the table itself from under the weight of everything kind of stretched out on those legs. The table actually kind of warped a bit or just sagged. So I decided to give it a little strength. Came in with a piece of 1/4 inch angle and C-clamped that in just to see if it would work, and it worked great. So we just prep this thing for welding. And get it in place. Cut it to length, which I didn't show on the video. And, of course, get my shoulder out of the way. Oh, there we go. Now, slide it in place. Get it in a position where it's out of the way of everything, and yet still can give that table a fair amount of support. All right, take some measurements, make sure we're in good shape. Tighten the C-clamp up. I think we're ready. Okay, cover up the motor, and let's do some stitch welds. Just about, I think I did about every 6 inches or so. And then flip it back over the other way and weld the other side. Okay, now this thing's getting heavy. We're probably up to about 75 pounds at this point. Alright, so we'll take our little adjusters out and get this thing somewhat squared up. Basically, it was wobbly, and who cares because it's a thumb screw. But when you put the little machine marks in there, yeah, you kind of want it squared up somewhat. You can see it still bounces around, but hey, we just want to make it look prettier. Okay, one more pass, a nice cleanup pass, and we've got her done. So, take it out, let's have a look. Slowed the video down so you could actually see it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And let's put the adjuster back in with the flange nut. Clean it off a bit with cleaner and a little Loctite. Put the nut on for the last time. Just snug it down just so that it still can turn, and we just set it up and let it sit for a half hour or so. In the meantime, we can drill the adjuster holes, and since this thing weighs a ton now, we're just going to do that by hand. And it shouldn't be a problem. Famous last words. No, but this wasn't a problem. I just, a couple of step drills. First a small one, next size, then the tap size. And this is the place where I can probably talk a little bit about this process of speaking over the top of the video after the fact. I don't really like it. It kind of separates me from the process. Now what I was hoping to do is just play the radio while I was building, which I enjoy up at the shop, but the other part of it is I'm sitting here in my office, and it's just not as exciting. So, and I've already filmed this entire project, so we're going to keep this format for the moment. And then when we go to the next project, we're going to go back to the old format. So I like it much better. So I don't know what happened here. checking out for some reason. But we'll come back. There we are. Do a little tap. Do a little tap dance. Okay. We've got one. Put the bolt in. And basically that bolt is a slider, and once we open the fence up or close the fence, then that bolt will tighten down on the fence so that it can't move. Okay, let's put that bolt in. Now we're making, we're working on the vertical hold downs. What I noticed was well, we'll explain it later, but for now, with the shear, we're just cutting these, kind of rough cutting them. And there's the final cut. Now we're welding all 4 of them together, or I think 6 of them together, so that we can take it over. Okay, let's cool it off first. And we could take it over, and we're going to make all of them uniform. Well, okay, let's put a new pad on. Make all of them uniform by having them welded together. And you can see that just cleaning up the lines. The table is absolutely flat. Well, not absolutely, because look at the roughness of it, but it is flat. So now that everybody is exactly the same as its neighbor, come in, make sure we're square, make sure we've got all of our supports. Come in with the center. Okay, adjust a little bit. And we want to have it reasonably centered. We're not looking at precision here. We're just looking at getting the bearings to be somewhat centered in the piece. There we go. We'll drill a pilot hole. Come in with a bigger drill bit. And even a bigger drill bit. Well, okay, maybe not. And we're grinding the, we're grinding the weld down, and now we're taking it over to the sander and finishing the weld off. Now the weld is weakened so much that these can be separated. So we've got 6 of them. clean them off real good, and that's what things are going to look like. Alright, well, let's make the axles for the bearings, and what we want to do is a little step axle here, taking it down to, I think it was a 1/4 inch or maybe 5/16, something like that. And then measure the axle thickness, or the bearing thickness. Okay, maybe we take it down a little further. Just enough that where there's just a bit of stick out. There we go. Measure the bearing thickness. Go ahead and go in and do a 5/16 shoulder on that side until it's just right. Of course, you can't see it. Let's see if we can take the bearing off. And in this case, I think it started vibrating, so I just got the... Yeah, now you can see. We brought it down to size for the other side, and then got it to the right diameter. And then cut it off. It didn't quite work, so just get the hacksaw out and trim it off the hacksaw. Okay, fit it into the bearing, and let's see what the whole thing looks like. Now we got a little bit of a bird of fight there. There it goes. Put the second part of the bearing in place, or the plate in place. Now if I just centered it, okay, then it might have been just a little bit big, so we'll trim it down a little bit. And we're working on the second one, and we need to make 3. Now that the dimensions of the first one are resolved, I can just copy the measurements, and it goes a lot faster. All right, if we come back in, test them out, get our measurements right, and we're ready to rip. Okay, they're all done. We're putting them in place, and then what we're doing here is basically just putting the little brackets on and swedging them in to the holes themselves. Once they're swedged in, and there, I'm just kind of setting them, and then there we go, swedging them in, once they're swedged in, they're not going anywhere. And this way I don't have to worry too much about the, if I was to weld them, would I burn up the bearing? And at this point, we're pretty well done with this video, or at least this segment of the video, and we will be back next week, and see you then. Thanks for watching.